Dear viewers and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the panel discussion, Technology Maximizing the Social Benefits Integrated Programs as part of second edition of ET Government DigiTech Conclave 2021. The governments are continuously working on ensuring the social benefits reach the eligible beneficiaries to meet the scheme's objectives. The challenge faced by the social benefit authorities can be multifaceted in identifying the right and eligible beneficiaries. Central and state governments are investing in advanced analytics powered systems to implement risk-based controls for bringing efficiency to the system. The governments and other agencies are using technology in a big way to identify, detect, and investigate anomalous cases or patterns concerning beneficiaries or benefits transfer. Transactional data among these social benefit public-centric schemes. This panel discussion is an attempt to understand the government's efforts and challenges to contain misuse, duplication, and other related abuse in social welfare schemes, future roadmap, and to also understand the first-hand view of the industry over digital transformation of social benefit departments. On behalf of ET government, I, Arpit, Gupta, welcome esteemed panelists to this panel discussion. To lead the panel, I'm joined by eminent leaders, senior bureaucrats, and industry leaders. I welcome Mr. Amod Kumar, Principal Secretary, Planning Department and Program Implementation Department, Government of Uttar Pradesh. Mr. K. Ravindra Naik, Principal Secretary, Social Welfare and Minority Welfare Department and Commissioner of Tribal Development Department in the Government of Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Babu A, Commissioner for Cooperation and Registrar of Cooperative Societies, Government of Andhra Pradesh, and Managing Director of Andhra Pradesh Dairy Development Cooperative Federation Limited. Dr. Samit Sharma, Secretary, Social Justice and Empowerment Department, Government of Rajasthan. Dr. Rashmi Singh, Special Secretary-cum-Director, Women and Child Development and Social Welfare Departments, Government of NCT of Delhi. Dr. Satya, Priya, Rath, Additional Secretary, Finance Department, Government of Odisha, and Mr. B. Radha, Krishna, Director, Fraud and Security Intelligence, SAS India. To begin the panel discussion, I start my first question to Mr. Amod Kumar. As we know that public sector funds should be used as holy water. How does the state planning department pursue abuses such as misuse, duplication, or frauds, if any, in the government-run social welfare schemes?
I think it varies from state to state, the role of planning department. For example, somewhere, mostly in the state government's IT department is the nodal department for handling the issues related to cybersecurity, frauds, duplication, etc. But in Uttar Pradesh, planning department is involved in DBT, maintaining the records of how many DBT transactions happened. Then we are also the coordinating department for Aadhaar authority. So I think those are the two functions through which planning department is involved. And I feel as far as maximizing technology for the social benefits, I think one thing which I have found being in planning department for about 1.5 years is one issue which I find is the digital divide, which is one major inhibitor in transmitting all these technology related benefits to the real needy person. So I think we need to be more proactive on the front of digital divide. One, I think so far we have followed the approach that mobile telephony and mobile services are expanding on their own. So we don't need to worry about digital divide because it will get covered anyway, maybe sooner or later. But I think we need to be more proactive. The other issue which I have found is issue of privacy versus transparency. For richer people, privacy is of concern. For poorer people, it is transparency which they want. Privacy is not of much concern. So when we are designing the programs, we have to keep this in mind, who our target audience is, whether it is relatively poorer persons who want more transparency, they are not concerned so much with privacy, while if we are dealing with richer audiences or richer beneficiaries or middle class, there I think privacy is important. So I think we must keep, whenever we are using technology related benefits or schemes, we must keep this in mind of privacy versus transparency.
Mr. Naik, my question to you is, social security or social benefit is an important aspect in good governance. What are the strategies of the UP government in dealing with the challenges to detect anomalous cases to minimize leakages of government funds?
As we all know that there is the technological intervention is very much pertinent and it's very much needed to stop the leakages, to plug the leakages, and to optimize the benefits, to extend the benefits. Just there is a need for technological interventions, analytical and timely intervention, less human intervention, human interface. See, lesser is the human interface, and the leakage chances of leakages is also less. So that we all know. So UPA is, as regard to UP, UP is one of the pioneer states where the UP has done the computerization of the scholarships way long, is 2014 onwards, and the software. Since then, it's continuously we are developing over a period of time, and still there is a need. Those software is developed, the data mining, data analysis. In that, still long way to go. See our stakeholder departments, our stakeholder partners. So they need to share with us to optimize our benefits also, and to them also. And as on date, still see, like verification of the qualifications. These all boards, this CBSE board, ICSE boards, state boards, central boards, universities. So with their data need to be synchronized with the scholarship data for easy verification. The verification process is the obsolete. We are using technology, but verification process is obsolete process. It's a age-old process. So we need to change simply we need to synchronize their website, their data with our data. So there is a huge scope for this. Number one. Number two, the verification. See, since the numbers are the 50 lakhs and above, more than 50 lakhs students, they get benefit out of this scholarship portal. And the verification of 50 lakhs will be too tedious process manually. So technological intervention by integrating other departments' websites. For example, an university has 10 affiliated colleges, and instead of we ask affiliated colleges, then immediately we can facilitate them to apply with that link, university link. It's an easy for us, and the percentage we take for granting the scholarship, this percentage also online verification can be done. So now verification is done, but it's a obsolete process, and mostly government agencies, they take help of the NIC. So NIC is not enough strengthened to deal with all such cases. That we are on the way, but hopefully in this coming year, so that we will be going to do all these things. And previously, we have all success stories also. Near more than 300 crores we could save because of interventions. And we have introduced the OTP systems, the Aadhaar authentication, bank accounts, and Aadhaar seeding. And still near about 27% is yet to take off. This year that will be going for 100% of Aadhaar seeding also. So that will also plug certain leakages. Number one. Number two, there is a concept of management quota for the admissions, management quota, and the direct SOP, standard operating procedures for the admissions. See, the scholarship prohibits for the management quota students. They are not eligible for getting the scholarships and tuition fees. So, but we don't know the number of students who have applied for, who are all from management quota and who are all from the direct. But most of the managements, they deliberately try to suppress that information, and they try to get that money. Most of the institutions, they are facing all sorts of allegations, and still correspondence going on, and it's a many are facing FIRs for giving fraudulent informations. That is there. But had we adopted that technology, had we by taking that info, that universities or the concerned boards, CBSE boards, if they share the information, which are all the seats to be filled directly through counseling and which are to be filled by the management quota. So that management quota, once they fill it, the software should automatically prohibit for applying the scholarships. So this need to take off still. So that is not there as on date. So there is a huge scope for it, and we are on the job. That is one thing. And not only the scholarships, other social benefit schemes, that's like old age pensions. The old age pensions, mostly not only leakages, the real beneficiaries also they suffer. They suffer for want of the money will bounce. Money generally bounce back for want of small IFSC code or technical errors, technical problems. So once the money comes back, so there is no system, in the at present treasury system. But I thank the government of India. Recently, they asked us to open a state nodal account. From the banking system, most of the problems will be resolved. So in coming years, that also will be resolved. So still, it is not stabilized fully 100%, all the software systems. So in this coming year, hopefully this year onwards, we will be going for 100% qualitative analyzing the data and adopting it for the maximum, optimizing the benefits, social benefits. And not only these two things, other state government schemes and central government like national these family benefit schemes, pensions, and these we give aid for grant for the marriage, performing marriages also. So all these schemes also we are going to have the similar software, and we'll be optimizing this year onwards fully, totally. That in principle.
Right. Government organizations cannot rely on yesterday's approaches to solve tomorrow's problems. Innovation is necessary to accomplish this today. And as you said, technology support to maximize the benefit of social welfare schemes is need of the hour. My next question to Mr. Babu: social security or social benefit is an important aspect in good governance. However, growing malpractices in social welfare schemes are a concern. How do you pursue abuses such as misuse, implication, or frauds in government and social welfare schemes? And how important is the role of technology support to maximize the benefit of social welfare schemes?
So I feel that, we have to create an ecosystem where we bring in, databases of various departments. And this needs to be curated with some analytical tools. And then married to some big databases like, Aadhaar, the unique identification platforms. So that we clearly come out with, the eligibility or the entitlement of a person, and then we can target that person. Now, most of the departments act in a watertight compartment. They have different data sets. So what we need is a golden, database, which can be state specific, which can be at the government of India level. And then, what we have to pass on is just yes or no, validations. We need not get into the details of the databases. For example, if a person is an income tax payee, we need not give, many of the social benefits to him. But unfortunately, in many states, you can see that we end up in paying those benefits to such people too. If the government of India provides us an yes or no transaction, we don't need any details, based on certain unique identifier. And that person can be removed from that particular database or that particular scheme. And we can in turn give that, benefit to a really needy person, which is the need of the hour. But we have a long way to go as far as that is concerned in our country.
Let me go to Rajasthan. Dr. Samit Sharma, what are the strategies of the Rajasthan government in dealing with the challenges to detect anomalous cases to minimize leakage of the government funds?
Rajasthan has got a huge number of social security pensioners and other schemes. There are 85 lakh pensioners who are getting either old age pension or disability pension or widow pension. And more than 5 lakh are there in post-matric scholarship schemes, more than 5 lakh in Palanara scheme, which is for orphan kids and the like. So there are around 1 crore beneficiaries. and it is very difficult to keep the record of all the beneficiaries and to keep a check on each and every penny of the government funds which we are spending or dispersing to them. So to take care of this, we have devised a IT-based mechanism. So all the major schemes, they are now online. Earlier, because the pensions, especially social security pensions, they are being approved at the level of SDM or BDO. So they used to apply to the SD office directly in paper. But now we have done away with it, and everyone has to apply online, either using their mobile phones or to the nearest CSC, CSC or e-Mitra Kendra. There are more than 50,000 e-Mitra Kendra in Rajasthan. So now we have done away with the physical paperwork, and everything is online and monitored. This is the first part. Second, all the applicants have to be verified and authenticated using their Aadhaar number or Jan Aadhaar number. Rajasthan has also devised a Jan Aadhaar number, which is like a family Aadhaar number. So whosoever is claiming benefit in any scheme of any department of the government of Rajasthan, he has to get himself registered through Aadhaar and Jan Aadhaar, so that we know which person or who is getting benefit under which scheme. So he can proceed through online application only when he authenticates himself through his Aadhaar and Jan Aadhaar number. Now, next part is DBT. So we take their bank account number, and all the money is transferred directly to the account of the beneficiaries. So this has made a huge change in this scenario of social security pension and scholarships. And but I do admit that still there are cases where there are some duplications, because due to the digital divide, which Amod sir has already pointed out, and we are continuously working on it. For example, earlier the pensioners used to continuously get his pension even after his death. Now what we have done recently is we have linked our birth and death certification portal with our social security pension portal. So as soon as one gets his death certificate, so his pension automatically gets stopped. So we are linking, similarly we have linked the government employees database with our SSP database. So if there is any government servant who is otherwise not entitled for under the Food Security Act, NFSA, or under the Social Security pension, he will automatically get identified, and we will remove him and we will make recoveries from him. So we are trying to make such attempts. As per the Government of India guidelines, we are shifting from earlier we used to physically verify the documents. Now thereafter we shifted to document-based verification. That is, we used to get PDF online and we used to verify it. Now we are, I think this month itself will shift to metadata verification. So it would be now data-based verification to identify a person, so that whether the claimant is legitimate or not, so as to eliminate the possibility of counterfeit documents. So we are moving ahead, but yes, fraud detection is a great challenge. It's a great threat to public money, because still there are people around who tend to misuse despite all these precautions, they intend to get the benefits for which they are not entitled to. But we are making continuous efforts. But I think this online system, the DBT system, the Aadhaar and Jan Aadhaar based authentication, this has improved our system to a great extent, and we are improving it. I think with each passing day. One more thing which we are attempting is, apart from this DigiLocker and e-vault system, which will be verifying the documents based on the available metadata, we are going for proactive identification of beneficiaries. So even without getting an application from the intended beneficiary, just from the database, we'll identify that yes, he is BPL, he has turned more than 60 years of age, so now he is eligible for social security pension. So without the application, we will identify him, we'll verify him, and we'll get his account and we'll transfer the money to him, so that no beneficiary is left out. So these are some of the efforts which the state government is making. to improve the system. Thanks.
Rashmi Singh, ma'am, growing malpractices in social welfare schemes is a concern. How do you deal with these challenges in Delhi?
Well, just now when I was hearing the Rajasthan experience, it actually took me back nearly a decade. When I was leading one of the reforms called Mission Convergence, for the government of Delhi as the mission director. And also the program was called Samajik Suvidha Sangam, but Mission Convergence was inherently, looking at the various social security programs, and combining, I would say the knowledge bank of the various departments across various schemes meant for the same family, but, not talking to each other, the different databases not talking to each other. So that was one thing which, like very early, when I say a decade back, when I went through that experience, actually what the Rajasthan model is talking about, we saw that there's like huge merit in the ingredients that, need to be embedded, for sure, through an approach which is very holistic in nature. Yeah, because I'm very happy to hear that you're talking about the database where proactive identification, that the person doesn't need to apply. And so similar was the kind of model that we tried in the Mission Convergence experience. But I'm going to come to something else because, now we have moved, ahead in terms of our learning, in terms of seeing that what works, and why, things, if they don't work, what is the reason? And I think that's one of the huge challenges of any e-governance strategy, to look at both successes and failures, the challenges. And it is this which I think we need to understand early enough, that when we look at e-governance strategies, it is not simply hardware, it is not simply, even the software design. There's a lot of, I would say, the term which, earlier we used to often use was business process reengineering, right? So now what does this business process reengineering mean? And how do we really bring about that shift and that change and that ownership of various stakeholders? According to me, the elements that have been spoken about by my speakers before this, I think everybody goes through this huge challenge of building that ownership, creating stakes both from the demand side and the supply side. Because at times you would hear that there are people who are probably facing difficulty, mera to document upload nahi ho raha hai, or say my document which was uploaded on the receiving side says that, well, the document is not legible enough, so we can't read it. So, there's a query generated. So, so that way creating the digital literacy and the digital communication, according to me, is one of another key indicators for success of whatever measure of change and improvement that we try to bring. Because at times you do feel frustrated also. You think that, is it fair enough? If things get kind of locked in the so-called, attempt to create a digital locker, if there's so lock means that, there has to be a, bit more of communication about what things are where, in terms of both speed of access and in terms of ensuring that access is to the right person. So both are equally important. Again, when I say ease of access, it is when we make things online, while the attempt is to make it easy in terms of access, it needs a lot of handholding, but given, kind of heterogeneity of population that you have in any state, Delhi, would still be a little better off in terms of connectivity, in terms of access to hardware, in terms of there are people smartphones are very, very common now. So you don't even probably need to go to a CSC center now. So you can, actually have the, so this is the change that we are feeling, that we do have, much greater opportunity today than we had before. But at the same time, to bring everybody on the same page, the kind of, training, capacity building, which is needed to put this technology to best use, whether through the mobile phone, whether through the, the access to, say, the PCs or the laptops, but, the kind of ownership which is needed I think a lot more of hand-holding still is required because we are going through this. And we also feel that at times what happens is that, people that you're wanting to improve the access, they kind of, they face it the harder way. And, people that you want to, kind of ensure that they don't get into the system through your fraud detection, through your deduplication. At times, they are the ones who actually succeed in still, beating the system. So this is one of our biggest challenges. So while we do this, what we are trying to do in Delhi is create a cadre of IT professionals in-house, in our team, be it in the women and child, be it in the social welfare. And I strongly feel that any program like this, where the amount of social benefits which are going are so huge, we need to set aside administrative cost, to set IT-based program management unit, professional IT personnel, and not just depending upon, third-party IT companies, vendors who would probably come and go. They are also needed. I'm not saying that they are not needed. They are needed, yet we need to build a cadre, which is there with you, and, build their capacity for data analytics, build their capacity for being able to see the trends, build their capacity for being able to inform policy. That's also equally important, because at times what happens is that while we have all kinds of sophisticated softwares, if, the concurrent monitoring, evaluation, review, learning from the data, if that is not in place, that culture, so that IT-based culture, the digital culture is something that I'm strongly, advocating for. And I think many of the companies which are there, the third parties, which are there to help us. So all that people look at in terms of business opportunities, probably selling hardware, software. But I think for me, a lot of business opportunity is there in terms of building capacities, building a culture. Yeah, then, having that ongoing third-party verification systems, which probably will put a check, to the kind of system which I have built within. So I think our system today needs, more of check and balance to again ensure that, so many social sector programs, they are certainly, while moving forward, they have a robust system of check and balances in place, which is very much possible with a, good informed use of technology. Thank you.
Dr. Satya, I'll come to you now. How does the Odisha State Finance Department pursue abuses in the government-run social welfare schemes? And what are key areas where you are adopting technologies to maximize the benefit of social welfare schemes?
Plugging leakages in social welfare schemes is a real challenge in government. Aadhaar has been instrumental in identifying a large number of ghost accounts of various government schemes. Intensifying that measure, Government of Odisha is using Aadhaar and bank account details to weed out ineligible beneficiaries of welfare schemes. So the need of the hour is basically to have a social protection registry. Some of the states, they are in advanced stage. We are also in the process. There are almost 60 social assistance programs underway in our state, Odisha, and these are mapped to different departments. However, the database of the beneficiaries maintained by various departments vary, and pointing out at the existence of ineligible beneficiaries. So therefore, adequate data authentication and data sanitization exercise will definitely bring about convergence in the databases of different departments. In a way, this exercise would result in creation of a super database, or we can call it as a social protection registry, that would automatically eliminate ineligible beneficiaries. This exercise is underway in our state. The social registry has begun with the beneficiary listed in our flagship program. We call it Kalia, Krushak Assistance for Livelihood and Income Augmentation Kalia, which was a first attempt to actually go for a DBT-based transfer using a huge database. By linking most of the welfare schemes to DBT, the menace of middlemen has been removed, saving considerable government resources. the state DBT cell has been set up in our state in the finance department itself with Secretary Finance as the state DBT coordinator. The state DBT cell functions under overall guidance of the state DBT advisory board and provides technical and sectoral support to roll out DBT in the state. However, poor internet connectivity in some of the rural areas, rural hinterlands, and unstable connectivity actually has created an impediment in this direction. Resolving this would further unlock the digital potential. So let me just tell you, in our state, about 2/3 of our GPs, Gram Panchayats, are unbanked, and internet connectivity in many of the rural pockets are very poor. So Government of Odisha is dedicated towards strengthening its digital presence across the state. Several ambitious digital governance services have been introduced in the recent times. Odisha One portal, Mo Seva Kendra initiative that validate the state's belief in the power of IT. It has been awarded the Digital Empowered State recently by APSC News, by APSC Foundation. To summarize, technology is to be supplemented with data adapt mining and realistic database maintenance towards ensuring a robust welfare delivery mechanism that is able to differentiate between valid and invalid claims. So thank you from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Rath. I'll now go to Mr. B. Radhakrishna. Mr. Radhakrishna, you heard these 5 different states. I think all these states have similar problems and challenges. All of them are adopting technologies, but there are certain challenges also. SAS is a global leader in analytics. Through innovative software services, SAS empowers its customers around the world to transform data into intelligence. What has been your experience in dealing with government customers globally?
Thanks, Arpit, for having me. And it was definitely very enriching to hear the industry leaders in social benefit schemes and social benefit departments. Okay, from over the last 44 years of our presence, SAS is providing fundamentally business analytic solutions for multiple verticals, including banking, insurance, government, and other verticals. SAS is working with multiple federal and state governments in Asia Pacific and other geographies, offering solutions for revenue and more specifically expenditure management. Most surveys say that globally, the governments distribute over 20% of their GDP to social spending each year. And this share has increased considerably during this pandemic period. Our estimates say that governments have pledged more than 10 trillion in financial aid during COVID-19. So SAS is currently working with Department of Work and Pensions, UK, Ministry of Social and Family Development, Ministry of Social Development, New Zealand, Department of Public Social Services, Los Angeles County, in the areas what most of the speakers in the panel spoke about. One, of course, is social benefit program integrity, ensuring how do we ensure the integrity of the scheme itself. What are the specific problems in schemes relating to child services? What are the issues relating to emergency program delivery, as what we have seen during COVID? Actually, most of the state governments had specific schemes to its citizens during COVID times. And how do we deal, what do we understand relating to unemployment fraud? What are the issues relating to specific targeted services as part of the schemes? And more importantly, from the planning perspective, I think some of the speakers part of the panel, we need to have some estimate or forecast with respect to demand of funds and be able to simulate the requirements of fund over a period of time, depending upon the requirements of the schemes itself. And I think as per Dr. Rashmi Madam mentioned, it is very, very important to understand the workforce analytics also. One, from the skill set perspective. Second is from the availability of the right skill. Third, of course, is the availability of the people itself. So what do we do? SAS enables a 360-degree view of the applicants, the beneficiaries, and the service providers who are part of this entire ecosystem, right from taking an application either online or as well as in manual, to improve all the aspects of the program integrity, whether it relates to eligibility, it relates to payments, either overpayments or underpayments, service quality, which is very, very critical, both from success as well as the penetration of the schemes itself. And of course, what we are very, very interested in terms of the compliance of the schemes. And how the various stakeholders within the scheme are complying to the requirements of the scheme. And more importantly, I think we see definitely a problem of fraud. Some estimates in India say that as much as 30 to 35% of the funds which are essentially sent out for distributing, they don't really reach out to the end beneficiaries or right beneficiaries. So what we do based on our technology, which is very, very specific to social benefit fraud, is supporting the departments in dealing with this particular problem so that the right benefit goes to the right beneficiary.
Thank you for sharing these insights and your experience. I'll now again go back to Mr. Amod. Kumar, sir, you represent the largest state of the country. When your state is large, your problems are also bigger in the sense. Sir, being a technology-savvy nation, India is aligned with technology for its ongoing development vision. Your views on using advanced analytics, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data management to generate comprehensive and valuable insights, and also understand risk factors to predict future severity?
I think, I mean, whatever you said in the beginning, all these technologies need to be used. And I think all of us here sitting in the panel agree to that. So there is no dispute. There is broad agreement on that. I will, based on whatever other speakers have said, I would like to bring a few points. One risk area is when you integrate all these, one risk is the control of the state over its citizens. Threat to democracy. I don't know how many of you have read George Orwell's 1984. So when we know which citizen is taking which benefit from the government, suppose there is an agitation, suppose there is any opposition leader, and we want to control their supporters, we know that these are the people who belong to opposition. We slowly and gradually start making them ineligible for government schemes or something like that. Like today, at a broad level, there is a threat of CBI, CVC, ED and all that. Or if in the state government, police is used to threaten opposition. I mean, that's a standard tactic all around in politics. Now, apart from the police, these will also become a tool in the hand of the government to oppress the citizens. How do we cover that risk? I think that's one big risk which I see, which we'll have to face as more and more states go on this unique identifier for all government schemes. So that's one concern which I want to flag for all others. Second, which Samit said, that proactive identification of beneficiary, I think 99% of the beneficiaries whom you proactively identify would like to take the benefit, but there may be 1% who may not like to take the benefit. So I think before you actually send the money to the account, you need to send an SMS to them that please reply yes or no whether you want to take the benefit of this scheme or not, because I was having a discussion with someone earlier. So that's the second thing. The other thing which is again of future is that more or less, I think, in all the states, DBT is the most preferred route. Ki bhai, ye scheme hai, account number lo, DBT kar do. So I think there may be every state which will have 50 DBT schemes. What's happening in all the DBT schemes? You are sending cash to the account of the individual in the name of different schemes. Why not we move towards UBI, Universal Basic Income, or Inclusive Growth Dividend, where money is not tied to schemes? Because ultimately, when he's getting the cash in hand, it is his freedom anyway. Whether you send the cash in his or her account by the name of Agriculture Department scheme or Social Welfare Department scheme or PM Awas Yojana or for toilet. So I think sooner or later we need to think about that, because, you know, one you may say as you grow in service, you start becoming cynical. But, you know, one thing which I feel that all these schemes are used by middlemen to siphon off the government money. And that complications are deliberately created so that the money doesn't reach the actual beneficiary. And when you try to remove the number of schemes, all these middlemen exert pressure and they don't let these some of the bogus schemes be removed. I think we need to be very harsh on that. And if we really want to cut down on middlemen and corruption in the government system, I think we must cut down on the number of schemes. There are too many schemes going around. And I think we should think about having UBI or some direct transfer of the money, which is unconditional. So I think these are my primary thoughts based on the discussion.
Thank you, sir. My next question to you, Mr. Naik, is to eliminate malpractices in social welfare schemes. What is your approach or strategy? What are your ongoing reforms and technology initiatives in this regard?
See, we want to educate the students, managements, and the administration, stakeholder, our officials, the processes. The processes. That is, firstly, these wrong things cannot be tolerated. So we go for exemplary actions. Number one. Number two, creating awareness through by sending SMS, bulk SMSs, and the websites. We use website, Facebooks, and Twitters, all sorts of social media. Through social media, we'll try to reach. We are trying to reach to our needy, our stakeholder, the down below. And from there, the awareness, there is a very much awareness already is there, but again, there is a need of the process, technological processes. The rural students, particularly, they cannot exercise, they're not comfortable in getting these forms filled, and small technical errors they do. They depend on the middlemen. Middlemen try to have the corner, the major amount of the scholarships or tuition fees from their accounts. And another reform we have already done is, instead of sending the tuition fee to the management, we are sending to the students. So the management student has that discretion, and they'll take out from their account and he will deposit. Earlier, we used to have that, we used to send the management. And management, there are lot many things. As a student were not there, the student discontinued. In spite of that, the money has been eaten away. Such complaint used to be there. So we are creating awareness, and by holding meetings, by having all sorts of social media and the print media also, and time to time press conferences. So that we are creating lot of things, awareness, and in coming days, still transparency is going to take place, and our public representative, particularly in UP, they are very much aware of all these things. They are very active, very much active, and they are definitely with their guidance, and the transparency issue is already being addressed. Still, there is a need to strengthen further, and we are attending it. We are addressing it. So that's with regard to transparency. Technologically, this software, the reaching out to the, we are going for app. We are developing an app-based. So student can feed for management-related app for the students. We are going to give different links such that will ease the process, and even rural student can use that technology easily. And those who are the foregoing scholarship for want of the technical errors, that also can be minimized. That also we are attending.
Thank you, sir. And I'll take these points to Mr. Babu now. So do you feel that we should reduce number of government schemes, or we should integrate them into one? And what are the risk factors that Andhra Pradesh is grappling with to eliminate these malpractices? What is your approach or strategy? And what are your ongoing reforms and technology initiatives in this regard?
We have to see any schemes, from two angles. One is where something is distributed in kind, and another is something, you're distributing on the basis of an income. But as far as the DBT schemes are concerned, as Sarah told, it is better not to classify and rather leave the choice to the people. And with the data and the ecosystem that we are having, we can ensure that it reaches the right person, unlike earlier times. Coming to the, the distribution that happens in kind, whether it is food, whether it is fertilizer, whether it is seed, or, any other parameter that you take, we have to ensure that it reaches the right person. So here, sometimes, there will be a section of people who cannot find money, in advance to pay for these commodities. So subsidies flows in. So we have, cash returns, which are actually, initially down payment is done and then the subsidy is paid, how we do in the LPG. We also have, direct subsidies just by giving, the kind and then getting the subsidized amount into the account. Both can work wonders, but it depends upon the kind of, stuff that you are distributing. Now, if you are distributing fertilizer, we cannot, expect the people to make a full down payment and then, pay them. Maybe we have to pay the subsidized fertilizer. In fact, I'm happy to share that the first DBT fertilizer system was done in AP. Now it is all over the country, where we linked 3 databases, including the soil health, the land database, and then the agriculture, the kind of crops. And these things calculated the requirement of the fertilizer to the person. And then he was asked whether you need this or not. Or he can ask for more also. But we found that 80% of the farmers asking for the exact amount of fertilizer that the system calculated. Now we give that. And at that time, at that point, that the excess usage or, a small resource, a quantity of resource being used by large people, there will be always queues, there will be always delays. We can avoid that. But asking them at the same time to pay in full and then, pass on the subsidy may not be the right person. So we would have to take a view on what kind of scheme we are looking and what kind of, persons that you are looking at or what kind of people that you are, trying to give the benefit. Some of the distribution, I would call it as, takeaway things can have common platforms, like a person who, where we distribute food through the public distribution system, which is now Aadhaar enabled in almost the entire country. Again, AP was the beginner in that. A similar workflow can be involved, even, while we reach out to Anganwadis, where we give food, take home ration, where we, for pregnant women, for small children. Now, instead of duplication, what I find is that each department make their own, they reinvent the wheel. What I feel that most of this distribution platform can run on similar lines. What we need is a proper identification of the beneficiary, an authenticated uptake, and then a supply chain. Now, most of these cases are common, only the role, the stakeholders change. So we can always do that. But I'll add one more point to what Amod sir has said, is that, any use of data or, workflows, need to be backed up by legislations. Now, we have the overarching Aadhaar Act in the country. But in addition to that, state-specific acts have to be brought out so that the misuse, as sir has suggested, can be avoided. Now, if you look at AP, we have enacted one important legislation. We call it as Core Data Authority Act. How the data, aggregated data can be used for what purpose is clearly defined in that. If someone feels that, that has not been properly used or it has been politically used, they always have a mechanism by which, that can be identified and curtailed. I feel that, data is, as far as transparency is concerned, is a common available source. And the purpose for which it has to be used should be identified and then clearly mentioned in legislations. And the purpose for which should not be used also should be identified and legislated. And last but not the least, we should have certain operation centers on cyber security. We have established something called a CSOC, which is a cyber security operation center in AP, where in each and every government database, and government workflows undergo various levels of testing every day, 365 days. Our servers, we try to, do the ethical hacking part of it. How far is the, the system strong enough to ensure that, these kind of attacks are done away with. Now, this needs to be done by every state and also at the Government of India level. I feel that we have a very long way to go. In fact, many of our database systems had failed primarily due to attacks, which could not even detect it. What we are seeing now in India, in terms of information, attacks or information being gathered in different ways. Even those can be curtailed if every state develops this capacity. I feel that we have a long way to go in that, and for this we have to use the best technology. Now, last point which I would like to tell is, when you talk about the best technology, we should not look at the costing. In government, we always have a tendency to go for the least cost, technology. Now, the least cost technology will also have, the maximum vulnerabilities. I feel that, there should be a separate, it should be done at the CVC level itself. And when it comes to procurement, that when it comes to technology, certain things have to be defined, and there will be 2-3 players doing that. Let us take from those players, or let us enlist them, and each government can take from one of them instead of going in for the least thing and reinventing everything. What I find is that all over India, we are reinventing wheels, whereas as far as technology and common data platforms are concerned, it is only one way. And if there is one best state which is doing it, or any other state which is doing it, let us all adopt that and go for it instead of reinventing the wheel.
I'll go to Dr. Samit Sharma. So my next question to you is, to eliminate these malpractices and reduce the risk, what is your approach and strategy, and what are your ongoing reforms and technology initiatives in this regard?
Let us think from the beginning. What is our intent? We wish to do 2 things. First of all the intended beneficiaries should get the benefits. This is number 1. Number 2 is there should be no leakage or pilferage or corruption. So I think the answer is in IT, because when numbers are huge, we cater to about 1 crore beneficiaries in Rajasthan, only in the social justice department. So you can just imagine the volumes we are handling. Only computer G can handle such volumes with great precision and accuracy and without any error. So we need to shift to IT-based systems, and as Madam has rightly remarked, we have to develop specialized PMUs which can develop new systems, which can modernize existing systems, which can undertake business process reengineering and the like. Second is making the technology easier for people. So I'm talking of M-governance, mobile-based governance. So most of our schemes are now M-enabled, in the sense that now anyone can, especially the scholarship schemes, because most of the students, they are already having mobiles. So they can apply online using their mobile phone very, very easily. Even pensioners can do that, but they prefer to go to a CSC or e-mitra. One more thing is, at the same time, we need to improve the digital literacy, because it is also important that our users should be able to use the system which we are developing for them. This is one part. Now, second is about the corruption. It is a huge, huge challenge. So in Rajasthan, you must be aware of Miss Aruna Roy and MKSS. So they are very active. And the government itself is very proactive, especially our Chief Minister. And we have developed a Jan Suchna portal. So whosoever is getting whatever benefit from the government, so their names have been displayed on the Government of Rajasthan portal. So NFSA beneficiaries are there. All our social security pensioners, their details are there. Even their account numbers with some of the digits crossed, so that there is no misuse of their account number is done. So otherwise, their names, their addresses, their mobile numbers, even their account numbers in part, their banks, what they are getting, anyone can see their pension ledger, that how much pension they're getting, at what time. They themselves can also see, and everybody can see. So I think this is very important, because otherwise also in the Right to Information Act clause 4, there is a provision for proactive disclosure. So under that act, so recently we have introduced all those cases of pensions and scholarships in which there were some objections. So we have made the objections public. So these are the reasons that because of which we are not able to give pension to this person. So now the system is, so I am very much for transparency, and it is a must. Of course, as Amod sir has pointed out, it is maybe there is a remote possibility of its misuse, which is of course very much there. But then when we compare the pros and cons, I would always opt for transparency, looking at the level of corruption and frauds which are happening even in the social sector. Now, the topic about which the conclave has been organized, fraud detection. It is very important because now when we are doing away with all the physical applications, the physical appearance of the applicants, we are not, so everything is as if it has become faceless. So then we need to be very careful because now we are relying only on the digital data and digital verification. So are there any ghost beneficiaries? Are there wrong account numbers? Is there any duplication? So we need to find out that these are the types of frauds which can happen, because I still believe that there must be a lot of leakage. I'll just share you a data that recently Government of India pointed out that in Rajasthan there are more than 5,000 pensioners who are more than 100 years of age who are getting pensions. So this is just one alarm for a likely fraud. So we need to devise such systems, we need to define such frauds or maybe fraud alarms. Our system needs to be integrated with such fraud alarms. So at least we need to be more careful. Now we need to physically verify them or whatever measure, either telecalling or other measure which you, whatever we'd like to adopt. But then we need to take care of corruption as well, correction as well. And we need to ensure that each and every penny of the government exchequer is spent as if it is our own money, as told by Mahatma Gandhi ji, or as written in our general financial and account rules. So we have to be very careful and we have to spend it carefully, so that, because finances are always limited for any government. So we need to use this scarce resource only for the needy and the poor, for which the scheme is intended, and not for anyone else. So we need to look for IT enablement, digitalization, and I think that's the future. Thanks.
I think with the use and adoption of technology like data analytics, we can definitely reduce the corruption and identify the bogus beneficiaries in the social welfare schemes. My next question to Dr. Rashmi Singh, you talked about the capacity building to bridge the digital divide. So what are your thoughts on deployment of out-of-the-box emerging analytical algorithms like predictive intelligence, time series forecasting, data mining, entity clustering in the social welfare and empowerment departments?
I do feel that there is a big need. So at the outset, I would, feel that to increase the confidence also for the manner in which, our resources are spent in the social sector, we need to actually bring that confidence, amongst all stakeholders. I mean, planning is represented here, and, I was happy to hear about his out-of-box thinking, from UP, when he talked about the need for integration of various schemes and all, which I've also been, always toying with these ideas of out-of-box solutions, which we need to come up with. Now, normally, these departments like social welfare, or other corporations which are looking at social security programs, you painted them in a manner as if the capacity is so limited to be able to adopt such tools that you're talking about, data analytics, forecasting, predictive tools, as if the two are antithesis of each other, which is not so. Yeah, I mean, as if the character of the people who are dealing with the social security, is something which will only look at how to give, but, not to be able to look at, how to give it more efficiently. Yeah. So I think that, it's not just IAS officers, it's not people who are there, sitting as the heads of the departments, but I think the capacity, of people down the line who probably can see more merit in terms of what they're doing. Because you see, when we have painted, the whole, the sector, with an image as if there is bound to be leakages, there's less of accountability. So the question is, would the same set of people, will they not feel better tomorrow if they feel confident that, well, there are these tools which they can also deploy and they can do this image makeover exercise, just change over. Because you see, it's not that, people want to be inefficient. It's not that people enjoy drudgery. repeated work, or I would say that, yeah, it's not that everybody would want that there should be leakages and frauds happening, but probably because they don't have those tools, access to the tools, and because we have not invested in our human resources, for them to be given the best. Yeah, whether, again, I say, where I'm quite tempted to say that today itself, when some of our own team members, they said, well, the file has come back that what we asked for had, much higher specification than, what the budget would provide. So I said, well, why do you need a higher specification? And they gave me actually 4 good logic why they need it. So, wherever, whether finance or planning or IT, today we need to actually encourage strengthening of deployment of the best tools for these sectors. The moment we decide to do that, the moment it is non-negotiable, I think there is bound to be the transformation, in terms of better deployment of the best of digital tools, which are there to improve the value of each penny that we spend, on the social security, social welfare programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi. And I think the same was emphasized by Mr. Babu also, that we should adopt the best of the technology available globally to reduce such challenges. I'll go to Dr. Satya. Your Chief Minister has a 5T program. He focuses on ensuring transparency, social security, and social benefits to the correct beneficiaries to ensure good governance. So how do you deal with malpractices in the interest of the state government and its stakeholders?
Everybody talks about basically the inclusion errors. There are also some exclusion errors. For example, in a particular social benefit program, we must ensure that all eligible beneficiaries should also get the benefit. So that is one aspect that also needs to be taken into account while use of technology. Again, use of technology in addition to putting in place a robust institutional arrangement and good governance practice can minimize the malpractices in the interest of the stakeholders. Good governance is the key in effective social security schemes. It involves strategic macro policy issues, organizational arrangements, and administrative operations. This is the framework for conception, development, and monitoring of sound and visible, viable social security programs. Good governance of a social security scheme involves strategic and macro policy issues, policy formulation, a balanced policy ensuring wide coverage and the desired level of income redistribution, a legislative procedure to give effect to these policy decisions, and an institutional arrangement should be appropriate for implementation of the scheme, opportunities for contributors and beneficiaries to influence decisions to monitor the administration of the scheme. As you mentioned, Odisha government has adopted the 5T agenda to transform governance in all departments by bringing about big transformational and institutional level changes and not incremental makeovers. Technology is being widely used in the state in eliminating inclusion as well as exclusion errors in the social benefit schemes. Aadhaar-based authentication, bank account validation, deduplication of beneficiaries is done through the technology use. To sum up, an effective institutional arrangement, good governance practices, and use of technology are the key interventions of Government of Odisha to deal with malpractices in the interest of the state government as well as the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll go to Mr. Radha Krishna. Mr. Radha Krishna, we heard 5 different states. All of them talked about adoption of digital technologies and digital transformation to eliminate these malpractices, identify these bogus beneficiaries. So I'm coming to you with a direct question. How can SAS benefit these state governments, especially planning department, finance department, social welfare departments, to eliminate these malpractices? Who are your ongoing customers in central and state governments, and how are you helping these customers?
Okay, if I just take a shot at consolidating or summarizing the challenges stated by the various leaders in social services, social departments. One, of course, is all of us acknowledge that the data relating to multiple schemes, which are owned by multiple departments are disparate. And I think there is unanimity in terms of saying that we need to have a single data repository, which could be used across multiple schemes. There are issues around, how that data could be used, but assuming that governments are well-intentioned, which could be debatable, but at this point of time, having a data repository definitely will solve most of the problems associated with, beneficiary. And also the biggest issue around not having such database or such repository is the schemes tend to be more reactive than proactive. So we have a concept called beneficiary lifecycle management in terms of right from a benefit being identified for a kid. And then, the kid essentially grows where the education need to be provided, and subsequently scholarships, and subsequently the other schemes need to be provided to that particular individual. So in the life cycle, this repository will definitely help to kind of identify proactively what kind of benefits beneficiaries or this individual will be eligible for. What we have also seen based on our interactions with multiple state governments is that primarily schemes are not owned by social welfare, schemes are owned by the respective departments. And that is where over a period of time, we have seen states which are owning 1,200 schemes, 900 schemes, 800 schemes. A lot of issues around digitization, even if there is digitization, non-reliable data. So there are fundamental issues around that. So there is definitely an effort which is required to start consolidating this, which I mentioned as part of my point one in terms of creating this integrated repository. Third, of course, is issues around scheme level validations with respect to eligibility, cross scheme level issues with respect to a single family or a single household getting multiple benefits which they are not eligible for. And of course, being able to integrate with third-party databases. So when I say third-party, integrating with, for example, birth and death registry or vehicle ownership or income tax and so on. And lastly, most important aspect in the life cycle of beneficiary to the payment is, we spoke quite a bit on DBT. DBT definitely helped to deal with a lot of inefficiencies in transmitting funds from the source to the end beneficiary. But there are still a lot of issues around DBT. So the payment becomes definitely one of the biggest issue in terms of the end milestone of providing that benefit to that particular individual. Now, given these challenges, I hope I summarized everything, including the cybersecurity part. So what we have done in India is SAS partnered with central and state government agencies, including income tax department for identifying non-compliance and multiple state tax departments to identify indirect tax evasion. I'm sure you'll be happy to know that SAS is currently engaged with anti-fraud unit of the largest health benefit scheme across the globe, covering a potential of 50 crore beneficiaries as part of Ayushman Bharat scheme, supporting on beneficiary validation, which is very, very important, ghost beneficiaries, and of course, suspicious claims. SAS solution, why are we different in terms of our success with respect to identification of fraud, waste, and abuse in these schemes? We come with a very unique approach by two counts. The first one, of course, is the proven hybrid detection methodology. I think most of the panel members have given examples of something what is known as known fraud, waste, and abuse, and something which is unknown or which is emerging. And to deal with both unknown and known, we essentially employ something called as hybrid detection methodology, where we come with triggers, we come with anomalies, as Dr. Samit mentioned about, more than 5,000 people are beyond 100 years of age availing benefits. That's an anomaly. Entity scoring. Now, this is very, very critical, not only from the perspective of detection, but also from the perspective of false positive reduction. Quite a few such initiatives, what we work dealing with large volumes of data, they end up being very unproductive because we might end up throwing a lot of false alarms, and thereby, there could be issues around adoption itself. So what is very important is that we do scoring of entities who are part of this ecosystem, whether it is beneficiary, whether it is location, whether it is the device from which this request is coming, the bank account, and of course, the servicing entities part of this particular ecosystem. And I think one thing what we have seen very, very interesting, and I'm sure, these issues around fraud, waste, and abuse is not just dealt at an individual level, but at a definitely much more organized or cohesive manner, what we call it as group of entities. Now, it could be group of, consisting of beneficiaries, agents, and the entities part of the service ecosystem, colluding to perpetrate, these frauds against the government schemes. And that's where the network analytics comes into picture to identify these group cohesive schemes. Also, the second aspect what I want to emphasize is that are we focusing on a transaction, which is a payment? Are we focusing on a registration of a beneficiary? Is it sufficient? Not really. Our experience says that we need to focus on 3 levels. One is, of course, transaction, which is at the most granular level. When we mean transaction, it could be a payment, it could be a registration, and so on. And second, of course, is monitoring the entities. As I give an example, the entities could be an individual, entities could be the organizations which are part of this ecosystem, service delivery. And third, of course, is a group of entities. All in all, using these 2 specific elements which I mentioned around hybrid fraud detection and, of course, supporting a multi-level monitoring, we have been immensely successful in any vertical. When I say any vertical, whether it is tax, whether it is mining fraud, whether it is social benefit, or any other issue where we either on revenue side as well as on the expenditure side. Rajasthan happens to be one of our big partner, where we are partnered with the state of Rajasthan as part of Rajcom, where we are providing these services across multiple use cases.
I'll go to Mr. Amod Kumar. Sir, over to you. What is the way forward and what are your priorities?
We must follow the track on which we are already going, and that is proactively identifying the beneficiaries and integrating all the databases, reducing the number of schemes. I think this is the way forward. I always say this 3 ka 30. If we spend 3% in any scheme, we get the benefits, or the efficiency benefit in the scheme will be 30%. 1% on IT, 1% on monitoring and evaluation, and 1% on training. So if we in any scheme we spend 1%, and because our schemes run into hundreds and thousands of crores, 1% is nothing. And that is why I agree with 2-3 panelists that we should never be penny wise and pound foolish in field of technology. We should use the best technology, because even if you use the best technology, your cost will still be less than 1% of your scheme.
Thank you. My last question to you, I would also like to understand your priorities for the current fiscal, as UP is the largest state in the country and there is a lot of pressure on social welfare department for various schemes, and you are also heading tribal development department. So what are your priorities for the current fiscal year 21 and 22?
This scholarship sending, not apart from sending the scholarship, the quality of education of the residential schools still yet to take off. See, the mostly poor students, they don't have gadgets, the phones, the updated versions, tabs, laptops, or phones. Because of that, because of this COVID situation, they couldn't attend these online classes. The relatively middle class and above people, those who can afford, they have already had this equipments and they were having the classes. This year we are concentrating the whatever the loss taken place due to this COVID, the situation, we could not address, we could not give enough benefit, educational benefit to the students. We are targeting them as soon as this is open, but now online also we are going for screens at common places, and we'll be going to address them, and we will make them at par with the other students, and they could not have the classes, attend classes because of these things. That is our main priorities. Number one, education. And the scholarships, we will be giving a timely scholarship, and no student will suffer, no student will for want of scholarship, for want of tuition fees. We will not discontinue that also, we will take care. We are having special attentions at a school level, college level, district level also. We are monitoring, but earlier there was a disconnect. Earlier monitoring and there was no feedback. Now we are monitoring at 3 stages. at management, at the school management level, district level, and at a state level. So at the three stages, we will be monitoring very minutely, and we will ensure the 100% transparency, quality, and benefit, optimize the benefit. That is one thing. And no eligible person will suffer. We'll ensure that no eligible person will suffer for the lack of not getting scholarship. That also we are going to ensure. Not only scholarship, other social benefit schemes also, as I told you earlier. In all schemes, we are going to have similar things. And hopefully, we will this time we'll try to reach with the same given funds. We will be reaching the more number of students, and the complaints and other things, other leakages will be almost all zero, I can assure you.
Mr. Babu, what is the way forward and what are your priorities?
Yeah, we should use the best tools, and the data should be real time. We should be absorbing the latest progress from the field. For this, we have to marry technology, tools, and people out there. And data visibility is the next thing. There are many data available with so many sources, but it's not available. I'll tell you a classical example of the central registration system, where the death and birth, are registered all over the state, but it's not available for the same state to use it, so that at least the death guy can lose his pension in the next cycle. So data visibility, and of course, data integration, we all spoke a lot, and the security aspects. So we have to bring all these concepts together so that we go forward. A lot of legislative actions have to be taken, which actually facilitates all these. And I think India, we are sitting on the largest databases, and the more the data, the richer is the country. The richest guys in the country are those who want the maximum data. That. So why we can't be the richest country in the world? Because, we are having the maximum data. The only thing is that we are not using it fully and efficiently. Thank you.
Dr. Samit, my next question to you, and last question, probably not the least, what is the way forward to minimize leakages of government funds in Rajasthan, and what are your priorities?
I want to thank my colleague from Andhra Pradesh that he was talking of that there is no need to reinvent the wheel. So I just want to share the good news with him that the system of IT which they are using in their hostels in Andhra Pradesh, so we are adopting it, and we are making all our registers, including cash registers, online, so as to bring transparency and accuracy, and so that there is no leakage or pilferage of the funds. So I take this opportunity to thank him. And again, my answer is it is the use of information technology, because when we are dealing with huge numbers, there is no other way out. And transparency and accountability in governance is another important point, I think, which will ensure that the benefit reaches the intended beneficiary. One more point I would like to add is that in the beginning we were discussing about that how the government should help its citizens. It can be done in three ways. First of all, you can provide that service. Maybe you open a school or a hospital and provide education or treatment. Second is you provide some goods. For example, you provide food for them or subsidized fertilizer from them. And third is, instead of doing these two things, the easiest way is to give money to him so that the money is transferred into his account. That is what we call DBT, and he can buy the service from the market on his own. So these are three methods. I would like to reiterate that in different sectors, these three different methods are required, and DBT is not the answer to all the social needs and the needs of the citizens. We have to have DBT, yes, because it is the most transparent way and accurate way of delivering the money to the beneficiary. But at the same time, we need to provide goods to our citizens, and much more difficult and much more important is to provide social services and other services, because that's the main role and duty of the government, I think. So it was a very useful discussion. We have made its horizon very wide. So it was there was discussion on UBI as well, and services and goods and DBT, and of course fraud detection. I think when we are adopting digitalization and IT-based systems, this data mining, data analysis, fraud detection, fraud alarms, because of whenever there will be an alarm, so there will be true alarms and false alarms. So there will be true positives, true negatives, false positive, false negatives. So then we need to analyze these things, and I think for such an endeavor, I think people like Radha, Krishna, they can help the state governments to improve their systems.
I'll go to now Dr. Rashmi Singh. Ma'am, what is the way forward for Delhi, and your concluding remarks? Over to you.
For me, the way forward, I think is really optimizing the use of technology and pushing ourselves beyond the borders, of what we feel is the only limit to which technology solution go. How is because this entire debate that we have been talking about, like, check and balance and fraud detection, deduplication, integration of data. But, we need to start questioning as to what end. And technology, if it is used, to look at the outcomes, to look at the results, like, what is it that ultimately you're looking for? Are schemes your goal? They aren't. They are like one of the means, right? So can the technology be used to actually tell us the difference which all the schemes are making in the people's life? We are sending, whether it is cash transfer, whether transferring other kinds of assistance, scholarship. So what difference is it making? So that is possible if we really push ourselves to the limit where we can actually have a better connect, better conversation, better feedback system. Because the moment you start having a better feedback system from the user's point of view, it becomes more citizen-centric. Suppose I put a child in the center, I put a woman in the center, and then I look at all the schemes, which are there all around. So given that situation, no matter what we transfer, with the help of technology, but can technology then, tell me whether the vulnerability of the family has been reduced, whether their family, has gone to a level of well-being and development, which was envisaged with the use of the various kinds of social, benefit programs. So for me, that would be the roadmap and the goal that I actually, think is, really worth, looking at the technology solutions, from also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satya. What is the way forward for Odisha government, and your concluding remarks?
One thing which Babu sir has mentioned, that we need not reinvent the wheel. How do you know that the wheel has been already invented? So there should be a common platform where the states or the even national government should be given a opportunity to share their experience. So there should be maybe a web platform. Maybe you can also initiate that kind of thing, where each and every state will be given to share their experience, that in this field we have done this, and that platform can actually help you in getting a lot of information on what is happening in different states, what is happening in at the national level. So that can be utilized, the lesson can be learned from that common platform, which can be used to actually adopt by different states to take forward their initiatives, and it can be used for any purposes, including for reducing the malpractices and all those things. So that is one thing which I would suggest, that if a platform, a web platform can be put in place where the states can share their initiatives, maybe in the form of some articles or something like that, which will be available, which can be made available to different stakeholders, who can take the inputs from that. And concluding remarks, thank you for giving this platform where we got to know about many initiatives taken by different states. And also from SAS we could get these are the services that are available, which can be used by the states to reduce the malpractices in the states. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Radha Krishna, quickly over to you. your concluding remarks and what is the way forward in the government and businesses to detect anomalies and adopting technologies.
Yeah, so I think it is very, very enriching and learning for me, at least, to hear from the leaders directly. One, of course, on the scheme design, and I think that Rashmi Singh emphasized on it and what it deserves, so that the sustainability of the scheme is very, very important, and that is primarily driven by the scheme design itself. And also issues around the scheme penetration. What are the challenges around the scheme penetration? We spoke about digital divide, technology divide. In spite of this penetration around technology to the hands of the citizen. Third, of course, which is very, very important, around what could be done around getting the data from multiple departments, and what could be the journey itself, and where do we start? And in the course of this journey, what are the best practices, as what Babu Amod sir mentioned? Is it a means or is it an end? And that's where the debate with respect to best practices come in picture. And that's where Mr. Satya mentioned about how do we collaborate to share these experiences across the states, as what has worked and what are the learnings with respect to something has worked, and of course something that what has not worked. So for me, at least, it is very, very enriching. As an analytics vendor, we definitely have a lot of learnings, and it is definitely our endeavor to engage with the industry leaders, the departments in social benefits, social services, to provide our services to deal with these specific problems. And I thank ET and the industry leaders as part of this panel, who have provided a lot of inputs for us in ensuring what are the critical success factors of these schemes.
Thank you, Radha Krishna. What an enriching session it was. As the crux of the discussion, I think, to get ahead of these malpractices and challenges in social welfare schemes, governments need to do 3-4 things. First, stay vigilant of ongoing trends for fraud detection, integration, create a roadmap for capacity building and digital literacy to bridge digital divide, and bring transparency. And last but not the least, begin preparation to defend against emerging threats by adopting best of the technology tools available. With this, I conclude today's panel discussion, Technology Maximizing the Social Benefits Integrated Program, part of the second edition of ET Government DigiTech Conclave 2021. On behalf of ET Government, I sincerely thank all our guest panelists for sharing their knowledge and expertise at the second edition of DigiTech Conclave. Thank you so much.